It was a busy wrestling weekend this past weekend. You had AEW Double or Nothing. You had WWE Saturday Night's Main Event. And to help me recap it all, joining me on the hotline from One True Sport, a dear friend of mine, hosts Rob Van Dam podcast, hosts podcast for Greg Gagne and Magnum TA, and just a great guy all around. It is Dominic DeAngelo. Dom, how are you, man?
Dude, it's always great to chop it up with you. One of my favorite people in the business to chat it up and talk a little wrestling and talk a little outside stuff sports. We were just talking about some Dallas and Texas and all that stuff.
Yeah, I'm up here in Fort Worth, so I'm just, I'm about 20, 25 minutes from Globe Life Field where All In Texas will be on July 12th. Let's start with AEW Double or Nothing. Happened this past Sunday in Glendale, Arizona, just outside of Phoenix. Um, Give me a letter grade for AEW Double or Nothing 2025.
Sure, I think I'll give it a B. A B. I'll give it a B because, and I would give it an A if it was shorter. That was it. Like that's my,
Yeah.
because I think just naturally, I understand. Like, and we know what we're getting when we watch an AEW pay-per-view and the length of it all and everything like that. But I do think it's a detriment to the overall presentation of the show, keeping fans engaged and things like that. You minimize your reach, I think, when you have such a long show. But I mean, the matches were great. The aesthetic and feel and the energy was great too overall. So in that way, I'm contradicting what I'm saying because it was good energy, but it was ultimately, I think, a great show. I just think it gets hurt a little bit by the length of it all, Stu.
And I'm with you. I think I might give it an A minus because
Hmm.
as it was an absolutely quality show,
Yeah.
great action from top to bottom. Yes, it would help if Tony would just book these things, cut either cut a match or two, or knock about 30 minutes off of it. It was because Sunday night it was you had the buy-in starting at what was it 6:30 p.m. Eastern,
Yeah, yeah.
5:30 here in Texas, and it went what 5 hours
Something like
between the
that.
buy-in and the main show. I mean, that is just
Not counting the media scrum either.
oh, yeah. And if you're there on site, you go to the media scrum. That's another hour or so.
Oh man.
I mean, you're not getting out there till midnight, 12:30. It's just weird. Let me ask you this: so you had Anarchy in the arena, crazy, fantastic match,
Yeah.
and you had the finals of the Owen Hart Foundation tournament on the men's side. Tony decided to do the Owen Cup finals as the main event.
Hmm.
Did you agree with that?
Excuse me. Absolutely. I did. I did. I think it adds to the stakes of what the Owen Hart tournament means to AEW, and I think that's a really key component to it all. And I think ultimately too, you have these two stars that you're really trying to build and make the face of your franchise, quote unquote. I mean, we've talked about this before. You lose somebody like a Cody Rhodes, you lose a name like CM Punk and a Jade Cargill. The list can go on, and it feels like a lot of big gut shots for AEW. So to position two of your guys that you have that that have one's been an original and one has been very, very proactive in saying positive things about your company to the media like these past weeks and since he's joined. It's just like these are the guys you want to ride with basically. So I think there was several levels to making this the main event that it really added to what they did, and I thought these guys told a really, really good story. And yeah, and the finish itself with Hangman winning, it was a surprise to a lot of people, myself included.
Yeah, it was a surprise. I think most everybody figured it was going to be Will Ospreay. If you looked at the betting odds, like from BetOnline.ag and others, they had Will Ospreay was getting most of the money. So I think it was expected Will Ospreay would be facing John Moxley in Arlington. But yeah, Hangman Adam Page getting the
Mhm.
victory. He's now going to go to face Moxley at All In Texas. Um, was that the right call?
So I feel okay with it. I don't know if it was necessarily the right call. I think the way you're building somebody like Osprey, I think it's gonna get to a point, and it's I think this point is getting close where Osprey should be your world champion, and like or have that pursuit. And I think though there is a great argument to be made for Hangman Page, considering he's an AEW original. Moxley is a name that is also very established the AEW brand, even though I despise the whole Death Riders angle. But I do think him going up against Moxley kind of completes a big arc for Hangman Page. Now that's if he wins, and he should win.
Yeah.
Like, so I think to the aspect too, I think if you have a feud here for this month and a half until All In takes place, I think the dynamic between Hangman and Moxley is a little bit more engaging of personalities and styles than maybe you have Osprey. Not to take anything away from Osprey and his persona he's conveying and certain things like that. I just think Hangman's story kind of lines up a little bit with what Moxley is trying to do with this Death Riders thing, even though it stinks.
Yeah. Well, see, and you and I are on the same page as far as that. This Moxley title run has been has fallen way short of what it could have been. The
Mm-hmm.
Death Riders it's a tired concept. It's been copy and paste since October.
Yep.
So are you of the belief like me that Hangman Adam Page versus Moxley, this needs to be the culmination. This needs to be the nail in the coffin, so to speak, for the Death Riders. Finally, Hangman Adam Page saves AEW from Moxley and his Death Riders.
100% I do because you had a lot of these red herrings certain ways and there were kind of obvious red herrings about like, oh, is it going to be Orange Cassidy to stop the Death Riders? Is it going to be Darby Allin to stop the Death Riders? Maybe it's Swerve. And I think the wild card coming into all this is Hangman Page.
Mm-hmm.
So, and you want to look at like, okay, if you're factoring in the AEW quote unquote universe of what they're doing, the Death Riders are this evil, chaotic faction that has run roughshod over everybody in AEW. Now, it hasn't been executed well whatsoever, and that's another story outside of what they're telling. But I do think Hangman has had this moral conflict where he's been a bad guy and he's done some heinous stuff, and he's had this travel, and now he's seeing himself from a different perspective, of, oh man, I am thankful that the fans still love me, even though I've done horrible things and I've gotten past Swerve and all this stuff. So I think, yes, I think that needs to happen. If they don't have Hangman win this and they somehow, for some reason, want Moxley to retain because they want to have Darby Allin do it or somebody else instead, it's an awful, terrible mistake and it's really going to damage the company. I think if they do
Yeah,
that.
I couldn't agree more. They this cannot go past July 12th.
No,
If
no.
it does, I I got a feeling people are going to start tuning out in droves because it's going to be, oh God, we got to live through this some more. Really,
Hey,
and you're right. Look, Darby Allin, he's still trying to come down off Mount Everest.
right? Yeah, there's
So
yeah.
and he, and we all hope he makes it down successfully and everything and healthy.
Hmm.
Even after that, it's going to take him time to get back into wrestling shape because, again, the pursuit to climb all the way up Mount Everest and then climb back down, your body, it's going to take a toll on your body because of the thin air, the lack of oxygen, just the wear and tear of your body going up and down that mountain. So it's going to take him a while. Look, I'm not looking for him to be at All In. I'm
No.
not sure he's going to be ring ready for All In. And that's fine by me. He needs to take as much time as he can to get back into ring shape and then bring him back, I don't know, all out in Toronto. I don't know, maybe, but I'm with you. Um, Mercedes Moné wins the women's tournament.
Hmm.
defeating Jamie Hayter. I think that was one that was pretty much expected. It's going to be Mercedes Moné versus Timeless Tony Storm for the AEW Women's World Championship. Let me ask you, uh, is Mercedes Moné more interesting now that she has dropped the New Japan Strong title? B, do you see her winning the Women's World title in Arlington?
For the answer to A, yes, I do. I think you kind of need a little bit of from a character perspective, fire lit under her a little bit. So I think that's a fair way to kind of do it. And then B, I think she needs to win the title. I think it's you can continue a feud with Tony Storm, but I do think Mercedes needs to win because it's been like well over a year since she's been a part of the company. She's had the TBS title run and stuff like that, which is fine, but still not the women's world championship, and she is like for you know what you're paying her and how she's been positioned in the past in WWE. She's a big name star, and you have to make the most of that. And it's just so, and it does make you give you pause a little bit when you think about Will Ospreay and what they're doing with him, or an Okada to be a better example of that. All is like, hey, let's get these stars in the limelight here. And so I think she needs to be in the title picture, the women's world title picture, and I do think she needs to ultimately win because it's just she's the star. You want that title around her waist at one point or another, and you could have a really, really fun and great feud with Tony Storm after All In as well, I think.
True. And Tony Storm could win the title back because I think she had her as a world champion has been the one of the big attractions to AEW in the last few months. It's one of those that just everybody's gravitated to. So I get that. Uh you mentioned Kazuchika Okada. He successfully defended the Continental Championship against Speedball Mike Bailey. If you believe the innuendo, the talk around the campfire, it's that Tony Khan's going to merge the Continental and International Championships, so we might get Okada versus Omega at All In. Uh, Give me your thoughts on the possibility of seeing one of the all-time classics from New Japan Pro Wrestling play out in front of us there at Globe Life Field.
Yeah, I think this one's been dog-eared for quite a while as to, fans wanting to see it and seeing it on a mainstream American wrestling product too. So, when Okada got here, I mean, that's the thought process is, oh man, can't wait to see him go up against somebody like an Omega, like and continue that rivalry and stuff like that. So, putting it in front of Globe Life there and stuff like that, making it feel like the big deal that it is the right thing to do. And I think ultimately too, excuse me, merging those titles together is the right thing to do,
Mm.
100%, because so many titles, excuse me, so many belts, everything like that. You need to just get realign what you're doing here and tighten things up in certain ways. And I think make those belts and titles mean a little bit more. Whatever you call it is whatever you would decide. But ultimately, both those titles I ultimately don't feel are very necessary in AEW. So um, you ultimately want those guys too in the world title picture.
Yeah. It, the other thing with Okada is, look, it was cute that he joined up with the Young Bucks with the Elite, and he's been doing this heel run since he got to AEW. Yet, I would say that especially in the last 4 or 5 months, the Okada we see now it's almost, I don't know, maybe it's just a personal thing. I think it is a disrespect to the greatness of Kazuchika Okada, multiple time former IWGP heavyweight champion, one of the icons in New Japan. And I think it's time for him. He may be having fun with it, but I think it's time to let that go and let's get the old Okada back, the one that dominated New Japan for so long, the one that we have seen could become one of the greatest wrestlers of all time, and we need to get back. He needs to get back to that. Am I far off, or should I just let Okada have fun and say bitch 4,000 times?
Yeah. No, Stu, I'm 100% with you. I think they need, I mean, like it was a missed opportunity to kind of not make him like a lone wolf in certain ways, I think, because like and make his, first impressions are can be everything here. And for a lot of American wrestling fans, that could have been their first impression of Okada is coming and debuting in AEW. Now I know he's been at Forbidden Door and stuff like that, but you sign him and stuff like that. You want to position him in a certain way. But no, he's been closer to on our truth than he's been to a CM Punk.
Mm.
And you want him to be more of a CM Punk than anything else. I think some of the stuff he does is good and clever and funny, but it's also ultimately you're not maximizing your opportunities in him. You're not getting your return on investment with somebody like an Okada, and it really is a shame. And I think saying it as a disrespect, I think is a fair way to put it for sure. Absolutely, it is.
Yeah,
You want
yeah.
to see.
Like I said, I get, and like I said, it could be like Nakamura in WWE. He's just having fun. This is the tail end of his career, and he just wants to have fun. I get it, but at the same time, it's I think by him doing this, people are forgetting how great he really is, and I think it's a disservice to wrestling fans all over.
I'll be honest, too. I'm not like as I've seen his New Japan work and stuff like that, but I'm not like invested and like embedded and know all the ins and outs of his career and his wrestling style and everything. Like I was fortunate enough to see him like 10 years ago when ROH did the thing in Philly. Well, that was
Mm-hmm.
2010, 15 years ago. Holy smokes. But I like so like what I'm seeing of Okada is really what is sticking with me right now. And I can
Mm-hmm.
imagine what that's like for fans that are very unaware of who he is, because it's
Yeah.
just like this is what we're getting with him when there's a whole lot more to this guy and what he's done for the wrestling business.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. Anything else from Double or Nothing stick out in your mind?
Yeah.
No other titles changed hands. Um, you had FTR defeating Daniel Garcia and Nigel McGuinness. Nigel McGuinness making a showing of it, showing out why he was so great back in his day. The Hurt Syndicate defending the AEW World Tag Team titles against the Sons of Texas, Dustin Rhodes, Sammy Guevara, two very good friends of mine. Um, Anything else from Double or Nothing stick out in your mind?
I'll just say I like, so I didn't watch it live. I watched it after the fact. And so I'm getting some of my friends' commentary of what they're thinking about the pay-per-view and stuff like that. And my one buddy was watching it live, the Anarchy in the Arena match, and like saying all this different things that are happening. Oh, they just chained Willow Nightingale's ear to the turnbuckle post, or Kenny Omega just ate a bunch of thumbtacks, and Swerve got his tongue stapled, and I'm like, oh God, really? Is this what's going on and all that stuff? And then when I watched it, I'm like, all right, yeah, that stuff's not my bag necessarily, but that match was a lot of fun. It
It
was,
was, and that's
yeah.
true, and that was the one thing I didn't even mention about Anarchy. We talked about briefly, but that
Mhm.
Anarchy in the Arena match. First of all, having the music,
Yes.
which it was so funny,
Hmm.
to go from the pipes and drums to I'm so excited from the Pointer Sisters, and then Kenny Omega finally says, "Let's get some 2000s alternate rock." And we get bodies from Drowning Pool, and that played for most of the match, which I think that added to the match so much.
It
And
really
then,
did. Yeah.
like you said, the staples and the thumbtacks, chaining, Will Nightingale's ear to the ring post, and everything. Fine. We did get the good guys winning with
Yep.
Kenny Omega, Swerve Strickland, Willow Nightingale, and the Ops.
Yep.
But yeah, it was a fun match to just sit back and just take in the carnage.
And I think that is can be like a big tent pole kind of match for AEW, and it has been obviously in certain
Mm-hmm.
ways. But I think them embracing, okay, let's play the music throughout this. Let's get creative and make this fun for the crowd and make this like an experience. I think it is one of their big takeaway matches that they can really embrace. I think like something like a Blood and Guts, I think they should kind of maybe almost do away with Blood and Guts after this fact. I think Anarchy in the Arena should be your bag kind of match that okay, this is something that fans can really get invested into. Same with the Owen Hart Cup. I think that's great to have because it's not a Royal Rumble, but it's like it has the stakes of a Royal Rumble. I think that's what, and that main eventing it at this show, I thought added to that.
Well, the Owen Hart. I compare it and and the Continental Classic.
Mhm.
I always say Continental Classic is kind of like their version of the G1, G1 Climax.
Right.
This is, kind of in a similar vein. Um, and you're right. The Anarchy in the Arena is such an AEW match. And yes, have it once you maybe do it every year. Make that just a regular double or nothing match.
Mhm.
Every year it's going to be Anarchy in the Arena. Um, the Blood and Guts, yeah, I'm kind of with you because it's too close to War Games.
Right.
And you know, look, we've seen AEW try to nudge itself a little towards sports entertainment, with the beginning of the show promos and stuff. So I would say, yeah, let Anarchy in the Arena be that match. Do once a year to blow off a feud or something like that, and I agree. They announced during the show Fighter Fest coming up on June 4th. It will be a 4-hour live broadcast with Dynamite and Collision on the same night. They're going to do a international title tournament. Kenny Omega will defend against 3 other individuals. Qualifying matches, I think, they're happening tonight on
Yeah.
Dynamite. In fact, I think it was Brody King and
Josh Alexander, I think was the
yes, Josh Alexander. I think that's one of them. Get 4 hours. I mean, we were just talking about pay per views, and now you're going to do your Wednesday night broadcast. You're going to do 4 hours.
look. I understand.
Seems a little ambitious.
Right, and I understand the aspect they got to dance around the NBA playoffs and stuff like that, but yeah, it's a lot of wrestling, and already you're thinking about like okay, WWE already uh, puts out a lot of wrestling every week too at the same time, so it's just like to do this all in one sitting, and then for the aspect too, it's kind of harkening back to what we were talking about previously too with this international title and that being something where Kenny, all right, yeah, Kenny's there. Why are you having this in between him potentially going up against Okada? I think that you'd want to get that match cemented and not dance around it still. And it feels pointless. Like it feels like yeah, I do the other show, Rumor and Innuendo, as it is
Right.
called, with Robert Karpolis, and the aspect is I hate I hate eliminator matches. I hate them. I hate anytime they get announced or anything like that. I'm just like, no, just give me. I don't care. Call a number one contender match or whatever, but I don't want this. No, it just. I think it's so counterproductive, and this just doesn't fit right. I get you got to fill some time, but there's different ways you can do that.
There is. I mean, both rosters have enough talent. You can fill time.
And the other
Uh,
aspect too is tournaments all over the place. Like that's what I liked about the Owen Hart Cup is that was the
yeah,
only tournament you had, I think, initially. Like I think you had a couple other ones, but like this one was the tournament. And now you have what you mentioned, the Continental Classic, then you have tournaments coming here, tournament over here. It's just like, no, let's keep it one tournament here. Make that one feel special. Don't worry
yeah,
about
I get it. I get it. Let's switch gears. Talk a little WWE. Before we get to Saturday night's main event, they made the announcement that WrestleMania 42 is no longer going to be in New Orleans. The reports are saying, I don't think they've made it official yet, but most reports are saying it's actually going to go back to Las Vegas, back to Allegiant Stadium, the home of the Raiders.
Yep.
And in fact, there are several reports that are saying WWE wants to make WrestleMania in Vegas a regular happening.
Mhm.
So they would do it not every year, but could be every other year. Give me your thoughts on possibility that we could see WrestleMania in Las Vegas as on a regular basis?
I think it's a good move on their part. Like obviously them pulling the rug out from under New Orleans is really like unprecedented in certain ways when it comes to WrestleMania. They announce WrestleMania, and that's
Mm-hmm.
where it's going to be typically. You know, The Rock even announced it was New Orleans,
Yep.
so it's just like, all right, that's where it's going to happen. So then the guy would be like, nah, but we'll take it back. From a business aspect and even from an entertainment and sports aspect, I completely do understand it, and it does make sense. I mean, like, look at who they're sistered up with in UFC. It's like
Mm-hmm.
fights happen in Vegas, and you still have that aura of boxing taking place in Vegas, and that identity going there. So why wouldn't WWE want to be a part of that ecosystem where, hey, you want to tune into WrestleMania? Well, guess what? You got to go to Las Vegas. And the other aspect too that is this happened. WrestleMania happened over Easter weekend. Easter weekend's a downtime for Vegas. It's a holiday, so it's like
Mm-hmm.
you want to get people out and about on an Easter weekend. Why not put WrestleMania there on the regular? And
Mm-hmm.
so I think there's that's a certain argument. Now, Stu, I don't know. Were you in New Orleans for that WrestleMania that they had last time there? WrestleMania
It
30
was 30, yeah, 34,
or
yes.
34? Yes.
34. I was in New Orleans.
So
Um,
was I. As a fan, I wasn't a dirt sheet writer at that point in time. So I just went
yeah.
as a fan, and it was the best WrestleMania I've ever been to. Not the match, not the event, the whole like being there, the experience.
Look, New Orleans is one of my favorite cities. It was
Yeah.
that I covered my first Super Bowl I covered was Super Bowl 47 in New Orleans.
Mm.
Niners Ravens, the Harbaugh Bowl.
Yeah. Oh my God.
Um, I've always enjoyed New Orleans. Vegas, I can do about 3 days and then I'm done.
Yeah. Yeah.
The other thing was I was going to ask you about, a lot of criticism was made this past April about prices
Rightfully.
in Vegas, from flights to tickets to hotels. There's there was a lot of criticism about how fans were being priced out of going to WrestleMania. Now WWE reportedly is looking at making Las Vegas a regular stop. Do you have I mean, could that be a danger, especially if you do it during Easter weekend? Because like I look just to see what it would take for me to fly from Austin to Las Vegas, and flights were at least a good $200 more than any other time of the year.
Yeah, I believe it. Well, two, yeah, Stu, no, I completely agree with that thought process too, because, and that's been a thing that's been in the back of my mind is like, yeah, these ticket prices are just insane now for WWE. Like all the events that they're doing, Money in the Bank, and you name it. Like some of their like quote unquote BPLEs are a little bit are expensive too. They want to make it an experience, and I get that. And then, but at the same time too, you're pulling away your live events, like you're not having as many anymore. And so it gives fans a less opportunity to go see the stars in person and feel a part of that WWE fandom that some of the adults my age or your age grew up watching. And now you can't really instill that and bring that to your children or the kids that you bring at the same time. And like, so you're gonna price out a lot of your fan base and in turn hurt the goodwill that, fans have with pro wrestling in general. Like, WWE has not always done its best job at kind of keeping everybody in consideration, but at the same time, too, it still always has kind of been the family wrestling show you watch.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that is a huge issue that they need to be very cautious of. I think they're getting a little too big for their britches, as JR might put
Yeah.
it. I think that
What's funny is the NFL flirted with the idea of doing the Super Bowl just in a certain, like, two or three certain cities, warm weather climates. So like I was at Super Bowl 52 in Minneapolis, which, look, it was, it's Minneapolis in February.
Yeah.
So it's going to be bitter cold, snow all over the place, and all that good stuff. Look, it was a disaster when it was in Arlington. The last time it was in Arlington, the only time it's been in Arlington, it was a disaster because it just happened to be a weekend where the Metroplex got a big ice storm. People were iced in. People couldn't get around. Not to mention, it's so spread out. Being in the Metroplex, you had events in Arlington, you had events in Dallas, you had events in Fort Worth, so everything's spread out. And so, yeah, I understand the possibility of maybe, it's financially might be a little more beneficial, but at the same time, there's something about having it in different locations and being able to enjoy those locations. I get it. Saturday night's main event. Uh, we had the Seth Rollins Braun Breaker beating CM Punk and Sami Zayn.
Mhm.
Bronson Reed returns, and now he's part of that conglomerate with Rollins and Breaker and Paul Heyman. Uh did Rollins and do Rollins and Braun need Bronson Reed in their little group?
That's a great question, Stu. I don't think they need him. I think they can make him a fun factor, though, you know? Because, I mean, honestly, Breaker fills the role that Bronson's doing, too, at the same time. So it's like, how are you going to make them kind of coexist with one another? And it made me think even more from a bigger perspective, too, is like, you got a lot of these bruiser big destroyers, too, also on SmackDown, and a Jacob Fatu and now a JC Mateo, aka Jeff Cobb. So it's like, you have several names that are kind of playing this role here for WWE. Uh, what is that going to do for the ultimate ones that you want to really, really build into stars when that's a Braun Breaker or a Jacob Fatu? It's like, you have these other cooks in the kitchen as well. So, uh, but I do ultimately, I think he'll be a fun aspect to it all. I don't think they necessarily need him, but it definitely begs the question too. Like, it just feels like a layup to put Becky Lynch in there too at some point or another.
It does, doesn't it? With
Yeah,
with her, I guess this heel run that she's been on. I get maybe there's a hesitancy to pair up Seth Rollins and Becky Lynch, husband wife, that type of thing. But at the same time, there feels like just a natural fit, looking beyond the whole husband wife thing. So
absolutely. And you know what, Stu, too? It's like you give that added element into the Seth Rollins' faction. I think that changes the whole dynamic of Seth Rollins. I think Seth Rollins is still somewhat of a lost soul in how to convey himself on television. Now, pairing him with Heyman certainly helps, and I think it, kind of adds to who he might be and a little bit of his aura. But if you pair him up with his wife, who's an actual wrestler too at the same time, and one of the best women's wrestlers we've ever encountered, like from a persona and star power standpoint, like you're getting like an elevated like Miss Elizabeth in
mm-hmm.
this equation
Yeah.
here. And that's something that we have not seen in quite a while is and this is something unique that would build Seth up in his own way. So I think to put Becky with him, it really might help him out discover who he is as a persona too. If he has his wife, somebody that they're close to, like, from a relationship standpoint, could really help him as a character on air too, I think.
Yeah, I think you're right. John Cena defeating R-Truth non-title match. We saw the hesitation for a moment with John Cena. Uh, I've seen many people talking about, okay, you got to have John Cena turn babyface sometime. And I agree. You're not going to have John Cena be a heel through this entire retirement tour and have him go out as a heel.
Right.
Just doesn't work that way. Look at Tanahashi in New Japan. I mean, he's doing it the right way. So if you're going to turn John Cena babyface, when do you do it?
I think you give it I think you give it a couple months. Just a
Okay.
couple months at the end of his run. I think that's it. I think you don't want to make this move seem very short term. I think if you were to make it short term, I think you should have ended it right after like WrestleMania, and that would have been like Cody Rhodes winning ultimately, like beating Cena, and then Cena being like, "What the hell was I doing?" kind of thing. I
Yeah.
think if you were to do that, you peel the band off really quick. But now that you're in it, ride it out for the majority of this final farewell tour. But nearing the end of the last couple months, have Cena come to his senses, be like, "Dang, I've been a jerk this whole time, and I do want to go out on the right note, and I do appreciate you fans." And you know what, Cody? I'm giving you a shot, whoever it may be, but Cody has
Yeah.
the example, I think. And then like whoever that unseats him, and boom, off into the sunset he goes. And so I think just maybe a couple months, but now that you're in the thick of this heel run, I don't think you turn him until it really, really means something near the end of it.
The scenario I've had in the kind of my fantasy scenario would be, and Cody's come back. He came back Saturday night to, help Jey Uso defeat Logan Paul, and now it's going to be Cody and Jey taking on Logan Paul and John Cena at Money in the Bank.
Mhm.
My fantasy scenario would be it ends up being Cena defending the title against Cody at, I don't know, Night of Champions maybe in Saudi Arabia.
Okay.
That's when The Rock finally makes his appearance, like he should have at WrestleMania. We won't get into that.
Yeah.
Um, The Rock finally makes an appearance, goes ringside with Cena. Match happens. Cody gets the pin. Cody wins the title.
Mhm.
Celebrates. Yay. John Cena, he's angry. Rock comes in the ring, acts like he's going to console John Cena and then hits him with a rock bottom. And that's where Cena starts his redemption tour. And we end up with Cena Rock, I don't know, Survivor Series maybe. That would be my thought. I think
Yeah.
it could be fun.
I think though to make his face turn back to a face turn more significant, I wouldn't want The Rock to be the perpetuator of it, where he's the one, hey, okay, Cena lost. I'm here to comfort you. I'm here to help you out. I'd want Cena to almost come to his ways and be like, yeah, wait a second, Rock, F you. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Instead, like him catch on before The Rock catches on first, I
And
think.
that's another thing. I just think The Rock should be involved somewhere since he
Sure.
was the
Oh yeah.
one that was involved in Cena turning heel.
Mhm.
Have
Yeah.
him involved in him turning babyface. So
That makes sense too, though, too, at the same time.
yeah. Damian Priest beat Drew McIntyre in the cage. Had a concerto. Reports are Drew McIntyre is going to take some time off, which he totally deserves. He's been going at it forever. Zelina Vega beating Chelsea Green to retain the women's U.S. title. All in all, it was an easy 2 hour, I think, watch.
Yeah.
So hey, and it was a great opportunity to have primetime wrestling on a Saturday night on a major network like NBC. Anything taken away from Saturday night's main event?
Well, Stu, I think it might have been just social media contingency, and we all know that's not the majority of the masses here when it comes to that. But like what I saw from feedback is like, oh, this Saturday night's main event was like blah. They didn't really do anything. It's kind of boring, and I'm like, no, they told stories on that thing and
Yeah,
they got the point across to what they wanted to get across and they highlighted their stars that they wanted. And, they made it feel special and it was short and sweet. That's the nice thing about it. It was just like, all right, man, hey, wrestling on a Saturday night, this feels special. I love the red, white, and blue ropes. Jesse
yeah,
Ventura being in the mix. And they were given that whole him calling the finish of the cage match really a hard time online too. And I'm like, dude, he's a heel, number one. He's your ultimate heel commentator. And the fact is you think about it, Bruno walked out of the cage all the time. That is the point of a cage match, is to walk out of the steel cage.
look, Jesse the Body Ventura, God bless him.
Yeah.
His commentary, it's one of those things. He's always been. He'll find something to rail on.
Yeah.
I'm surprised he did. I'm surprised he didn't rail on the referees as much as he did. He that was used to be his calling card. He would give the referees all sorts of hell.
Yeah.
Slow count, whatever, inconsistent count. So and it's kind of one of those things. Okay, Jesse's being Jesse. It's harkening back to when he was with Gorilla Monsoon. I get it. He was playing the part, so I
Yeah.
get that.
Yeah. And it's like, I think too, having somebody that's kind of a wild card in the mix once in a while, yeah, maybe he might say some stuff that's counterproductive in certain ways, but ultimately too, it is refreshing to see and hear because you're like, oh man, Jesse said that?
Yeah.
Oh, wow, okay, whatever. But yeah, I overall I thought it was a good show and I really enjoyed it. I
Yeah.
enjoyed it a lot. Yeah.
I did too. WWE announcing a takeover of Atlanta
Mhm.
with NXT's Great American Bash, Saturday night's main event, and Evolution. So we're bringing back the women's event
Yep.
on July 12th and 13th.
What
And
else is
in
happening?
fact, NXT's Great American Bash is going to run head to head with AEW All in Texas.
Oh, that's a shocker. Man.
Shocker. Is okay. WWE counter program, is this purposely counter programming against AEW? Was this we're just doing our thing? And I mean, it's kind of like, really, are you I mean, I get it, it's NXT
Yeah.
going up against probably a marquee match with Hangman Page and Moxley. So but still, WWE kind of counter programming against AEW to a certain extent. Give me your thoughts.
Yeah, it's a little bit of dirty pool, I think. But that's the pro wrestling business too. It's inherent, I think there is. I think Triple H and WWE kind of do want to flex and be like, look, we'll put an NXT up against your big headline pay-per-view, and we're probably going to get a good amount of viewers watching that because it's more accessible for people to watch in comparison to them paying a 60 or $50 for a pay-per-view or whatever it may be. And so it's just like uh, yeah, I kind of I don't necessarily hate on it that much. I understand it, but at the same time too, it's like I thought Tony Khan's comments during the media scrum when he was asked about it, uh,
Mm-hmm.
I thought was good. Hey, yeah, I remember Jim Crockett's promotion doing that, and he's like, but we're not going to end up like them.
Yeah, that was, and you're right. They did Survivor Series right up against Starcade back in the
Yeah,
day. So, which, and by the way, it was Mark Hoke, a good friend of mine,
yeah,
and I co-host his show on Sundays. He was the one that asked Tony about the counter programming. So credit to Mark Hoke.
yep,
Mark Hoke show on Odyssey and Kate on FM, all this. But yeah, look, I get it. It's competition. Yes, it's a little bit of dirty pool. Um, I do wonder NXT, putting your third brand up against, the biggest, AEW's biggest event in, all year long. I get that. So, all right, whatever. That's fine. Um, here's an interesting thing. So you got they've got this Worlds Collide event coming up on June 7th.
yep.
WWE and AAA.
Mhm,
They've announced two matches so far. First, they announced Legado del Fantasma.
mhm.
So Santos Escobar, Berto, and Angel taking on El Hill del Dr. Wagner Jr., Psycho Clown, and Pagano. Great trios match. Should be a lot of fun, especially with the, look, Lucha Libre trios. That should be fantastic. Here's the other one. This one's interesting.
Yes,
Oh, El Hill del Vikingo. Vikingo.
yeah,
We've seen him in AEW, everything. One of the greatest, taking on Chad Gable. Monday night on Raw, they flashed the graphic and it says for the AAA Mega Championship.
right,
Now here's the problem. As of right now, that title is being held by the man who used to work in WWE as Alberto Del Rio,
right.
Alberto El Patron. So is it just me, or did they just telegraph that Vikingo is going to win that title? I think, in fact, they've got a title match, Vikingo and El Patron. Is it this weekend? One of the Triple Mania events.
I'm not sure when it exactly happens, but yeah, I know it's on the docket to
Yeah.
happen.
So did they just telegraph? Oh, Vikingo's going to win the title. He's going to beat El Patron for the title.
Think so. I mean, there was the a big hubbub about him. Like, hey, is Del Rio under contract now with WWE? Is he part of the company? What's going on? And he's the champion, and they were getting a lot of negative feedback from that too at the same time. And so maybe they're just trying to get out ahead of it and be like, yeah, Vikingo is gonna defend the championship here. It just doesn't seem. I don't know. Why not wait until that match happens and then announce it? You have some time still to build it, but I guess not too if it's June 7th. That's like what, like a little under 2 weeks or
But
something.
yeah, about a week and a half now.
So I
So
guess you don't have too much time to do it. So maybe they just were like, yeah, let's just advertise it, get it out of the way. That it's a dog whistle to people to be like, hey, we're not keeping Del Rio around potentially, I guess. But
yeah.
I maybe so yeah, I think that it was probably intentional. I definitely don't think it was an oversight.
Well, and from the reports I've read, yes, WWE did redo the contracts for the luchadors in AAA, but it was for the purpose of now that WWE owns AAA, they wanted them in WWE contracts, which are framed a little bit differently than the AAA contracts. So yeah, in essence, yes, Alberto Del Rio has a WWE contract, but I think it was just for that. It's not like he's going to be wrestling on Raw next week.
Right,
So
right, right. Exactly.
um, let's see, a couple of things. We've had Julia, which that was a kind of a shocker, and LA Knight qualified for Money in the Bank on SmackDown last Friday, and then Penta and Seth Rollins qualified on Raw on Monday night. Uh, if you had to pick who wins who wins the Money in Bank briefcase on the men's and women's side?
Ooh, that's tough. So let's see. I guess it's not that tough now that I think about it. I think how Seth set it up for himself on Raw. I think Seth has to be the heavy favorite because I think there's a lot of fun story elements you can kind of have with Seth's the one wielding that briefcase around, and you're having him potentially tease, him obviously with Jay or with Cena, whoever holds the belt. So I think. And like he was talking about that being power and having power.
Mm-hmm.
And I think, if he can't necessarily have one of the titles at this moment in time, having a briefcase is that form of power that he controls any moment, any time sort of aspect of it all. So I would go with Seth, I think, if that was for the men's side. As far as the women's go, I think in the same turn, Rhea is such a star that I do think you need something for her to have. And if she's pursuing in a babyface role as one of your top stars, it would benefit her too, I think, to maybe have the briefcase and have something like that fun. And so you got two top name stars to kind of hold those titles together. But I mean, I'm certainly not against the aspect of them like having a Roxanne Perez win and
Mm-hmm.
kind of shocking a little bit of people. As far as anything besides the men, like Seth maybe happening with the men's, I'm not sure who else I would necessarily bestow it upon. You could tell some good stories in a lot of different ways. So, but I think how they set the table for Seth makes the most sense of maybe the direction they're going.
I agree with you on the Seth thing. Like you said, the way they set it up on Monday night, the promo, wants all the power, I'll get that. So that wouldn't make sense. On the women's side, I while Rhea with the briefcase would be interesting, I think Roxanne Perez would be interesting as well. I think Julia would be interesting as
Yeah.
well. I think it's probably a little more wide open on the women's side than it is on the men's side. Um, and I mean, it may not, maybe it's not Seth, maybe it's somebody else. Maybe they have a different plan in place for Seth. I think Seth does end up with that world championship around his waist sometime this year.
Mhm.
And I think it could be via the Money in the Bank briefcase. So I think you may be right. So he is Dominic DeAngelo. Dom, tell everybody how, what the podcast you run and how they can find you.
Yeah, sure. So no, it's no longer One True Sport. We have merged with Brass Ring Media. So me and Zach Haydorn, we do a YouTube channel now together, and we do live content that goes on there. And I do a daily hotline. I do a 15-minute daily hotline. Usually all I do is really cover one topic and talk about it. It's not People don't call in. I haven't had any scoops yet, but maybe at some point I will. But and it's you don't got to pay like Mean Gene or nothing like that. So, but I do lean into the 900 number. I do lean into that a little bit. So check that out. Just type in Brass Ring Media Wrestling, and that should pop up on YouTube. I do RVD TV, One of a Kind with RVD podcast. Rob and I, we've been having ECW guests left and right. We had Taz on, we've had Tommy Dreamer on, we've had Kid Cash. More to plan too, I think, when it comes to paying tribute to Sabu and everything. So it's been a lot of fun and bittersweet to talk about Sabu in a lot of good ways and stuff like that. So rvdtv.com and check out if you do want to check out Magnum TA Greg Gagne, we all that'll be on the Brass Ring Media channel, those episodes and stuff like that. So be sure to check that out. And then I do a show with Fonzie too on RVD TV too. So Sandman was another one we had on too. So it's been great stuff. So yeah, Stu, just staying busy, but I got time for you, and it's always nice to chat it up with you, brother.
And I appreciate it. I got to meet Bill Alfonso in Las Vegas last year. Great guy. We had a nice little chat. So, Dominic DeAngelo, I appreciate it, man. As always, all the best to you. Let me know if you come out to Texas. We'll hit some barbecue. Otherwise, I'll talk to you soon.
Heck yeah, brother. Thank you so much.